Hello there, men, and welcome to the Masculinism Movement channel. I'm your host, Brian Crawl, and today I'm going to be mansplaining to you about traditional conservative women. But before I get started, would you mind hitting the like button for me? Thanks. As you've probably heard, it says it right there in my name below, I used to be a social scientist and have studied many cultures and have spent time in about 20 different ones. I've also studied a number of different religions and spent time in their places of worship around the world as well. And here are the facts about traditional women, which are true for all women, no matter what tradition they are coming from. They are no less hypergamous than any other women out there. If anything, they are more hypergamous because they are more focused on getting married and raising a family than getting laid. And if you didn't know this, it costs a boatload of money to raise a family today. It is the less traditional women who are less hypergamous about who they date and have sex with. You see, you are far more likely to casually date and fuck a less traditional woman, even if you aren't her ideal mate. Even if her ideal mate is above you in status and attractiveness, right? And you're not the type of guy she wants to be with forever. She may still quite often give you a chance to have some casual fun together with, but traditional women are much less likely to casually date and have sex since they are looking for something serious, like, a lifetime of marriage. And because of that, traditional women are just as apt to consider how much money a man makes when marrying him, if not more apt to do so than other girls. Because traditionally, marriages were arranged with finances in mind. They were financial alliances. They were not about romance. And a woman being traditional doesn't necessarily make her less apt to divorce you either. It does in certain cultures, but as for Christianity here in America, well, the statistics have shown that Christians get divorced even more than atheists. So unfortunately, marrying a traditional religious girl is not always going to be some sort of loyalty hack. And a woman being traditional or conservative or religious also does not guarantee her sexual purity. I've heard of multiple accounts of men going to church just to find women to get laid with and finding numerous girls there that would have casual sex with them, despite the fact that I literally just got done telling you that, many of these women are looking for marriage, which is still true a lot of the time. But some of these girls are sluts. And you wouldn't want to go marrying a girl for, traditional conservative religious purposes, not knowing what you're actually getting, if you're actually getting, a virgin or a slut. And that is why in many traditional religious cultures, women had to prove their virginity in some kind of way by showing that they have a hymen or by bleeding when they first have sex. But there's really no accurate way to verify purity. So that is an issue. And traditional women are also often sexually inexperienced, prude, and sexually frigid, and thus very bad lays. And they often have sexual issues due to the extreme amount of sexual shame that their conservative culture and religion has instilled upon them and conditioned them with. So if you're thinking about getting with a traditional conservative religious woman because you want a virgin, someone who's sexually pure and everything, well, you are in for a not so pleasant surprise. Because I had sex with a conservative virgin once who had priest parents, and it was terrible. She not only didn't know what to do, but wasn't comfortable even communicating about sex at all in the most basic ways whatsoever. And so navigating consent and what she wanted to do with me was very difficult. She was the most difficult person of all of the 86 women I fucked to do so with. And when I would tell her what she could do to please me, she simply wouldn't do it. It was like so awkward and uncomfortable, and I got so little pleasure out of it that I couldn't finish. And at some point, I was just like, this isn't comfortable. She is just not a sexual enough being. And so after that, whenever I would go out on dates with girls or have them over and they would tell me they were virgins and show sexual interest in me, I ended the date immediately and told her I wasn't the guy for her, because virgins are just the worst lays. They are the worst girls to have sex with. And her being religious and conservative doesn't guarantee loyalty. I've heard of numerous accounts of traditional conservative religious women cheating on their husbands. Okay. What I can say about them for sure is that traditional women are even more brainwashed, conformist, and simple-minded than other girls, which is saying a lot, since we all know how most women are already these things. So, to say that they are much more is saying a lot. And traditional women are also more likely to still live with their parents, even at an older age than others. And even if they don't, they will still be much less independent and more obedient to their parents than most girls. In fact, many traditional conservative women live in very large but tight-knit clan-style families. And thus, due to this lack of independence, they will tend to be much less mature than most other women who have to live independently from their family, which again is saying a lot, since we all also know how immature most women are. And traditional women are also more likely to reject you based upon you not being the exact cookie cutter mold of what their parents want in a guy for them, or what their conservative cultural traditions say a man is supposed to be for them, which is going to be like some sort of cultural meme that is a stereotype really that I'd never want to embody. And traditional women are generally only looking to date men who strictly adhere to their culture and religious traditions, or someone who will convert, which is something, again, I wouldn't want to do for any woman. And traditional conservative women are looking for a man to marry and start a family with, which not only takes a boatload of money to do today, as I said already, but they also want the man to make enough so that they can be stay-at-home moms too, which makes them some of the most expensive women in the world. And TradCon women, in spite of having whatever values you may value, are still women. They still have female nature, so they still possess all of the faults and flaws of a female, which means that in spite of their morals and values and virtues, they will still act manipulative and toxic. You see, just because they are religious and have been taught to be moral and, have ethics and such, doesn't mean that they won't use their sense of morality self-righteously and manipulatively for their own purposes. In fact, that is exactly what religious women do. And they will do the same with their so-called conservative political values as well. And I find that being raised in a strict culture that instills a lot of these so-called ethics and virtues and morals into them has really mostly just been making them self-righteous and narcissistic as well. In fact, religious women are some of the most narcissistic people. Their indoctrination has turned them into narcissists. And having traditional values doesn't mean a woman practices what she preaches or is a good woman at all. I mean, she could still do bad things and be a two-faced bitch once you get to know her, as many conservative women I've met are. And I'm sure we all know how hypocritical religious people can be. And a woman's traditional upbringing often just programs them with narcissism, as I said, and makes them think too much of themselves for subscribing to whatever religious doctrine or traditional values that they do, and think of themselves as morally superior to others, and also irreproachable, right? And unaware of their own hypocrisy as well. And so that is really awful to have to deal with in a partner. And due to their upbringing, traditional women are oftentimes very square, rigid, judgmental, and also lame, and like serious or sterile emotionally, and just generally not very fun. And dating them is often more like being on job interviews than it is about connecting through enjoyable activities, especially through romance and sex. right? Because again, they are looking for marriage and they have a very serious set of traditions that they attach to it, that they want to adhere to. And I think that men who want to be with traditional women are only doing it because they don't know what they are talking about and are desperate. So they've made themselves believe that the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. And if they can't make it work with trying to have casual sex with girls they meet in the nightlife who seem slutty, then what they really need to do is go for a traditional conservative type, a good girl, someone who's waiting for marriage, right? And it is just because they think the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. And wait until you get there and find out that it's still just grass that only looks good when it's made to look good, right? And you are now the one who has to take care of it in order to make sure it can keep up that appearance. And similarly, these traditional women may make themselves look more feminine than many modern women do, and may act like they are submissive and will make good wives and are wife material, but you will be getting more than you bargained for when you sign up to be with one. And these types of women will often hook desperate men in who have no other options, which is easy for them to do by letting the sexual frustration build up in the man until he feels like he needs to be with her romantically and sexually so bad that he will do anything, including marrying her and signing over his life and half of his assets. And that is traditionally how traditional religious women would get men. And that is why sex was traditionally reserved for marriage, because that was the only way to force people to get married. When that happens, it's only after the honeymoon is done that you realize what a mistake you've made. So don't fall for it. Traditional or conservative or religious doesn't mean good. If she is a female, she still has female nature with all of the female faults and flaws that you are going to have to deal with, if not worse, due to her traditional conservative conditioning and programming. So these types of women are yet again another type of woman who is no good and who I recommend simply staying away from. That concludes this talk. I hope I mansplained that well enough for you guys out there. Thanks for listening. And if you like this video, be sure to hit the like button and share these messages with everyone by sharing the video on social media and talking about these things too. And lastly, check out the links in the description below for other resources for your masculine personal development and living the life you want to as an independent man. And if you can afford to donate, please do so with the PayPal link below, because your support funds me doing this work and fighting the good fight for men like you. And you can stay tuned for the next video coming out soon. Make sure you're subscribed so you'll be notified when that is. And until then, take care of yourselves, men, because no woman out there is going to.